I always thought that trust was the foundation of a relationship. But one night I heard something that changed my life forever. In that moment, I lost not only love, but also faith and sincerity. I met Aaron in my third year of university, in one of those tiny classrooms where everyone is squeezed into pairs of psychology. He was sitting in the back row, chewing gum and looking like he didn't care about the world. Of course, that's the type of guy I was always attracted to. A guy with a look that said, "I've seen more than you can imagine." I was completely different then. Overly responsible, always on time, always with colorful notes and stickers. I had no idea that someone like me could be interested in someone like him. But the unexpected happened. We got a joint assignment, and I was assigned to Aaron. "Hi, I'm Kate," I said, extending my hand. He looked at her, then at me. He smiled and shook my hand. "Aaron, I'm bad at group projects. I'll let you know right away." I laughed. "And I'm good. I'll make up for it." That's how it all started. We met a few times in the library, writing essays, arguing about Freud. He smoked during breaks. I drank green tea. He wore leather jackets and didn't like making promises. But one day, when I first slipped into an icy puddle in front of him, he grabbed my hand and didn't let go for a long time. "You have to be more careful, Kate." His voice was quiet, even gentle. From that moment on, something changed. We started seeing each other outside the university. Coffee shops, walks in the evening city, those long conversations about everything and nothing. I opened up to him, and he opened up to me. At least, that's what I thought. A few months later, we were officially a couple. On social media, in front of friends, in our own eyes. I was in love, unconditionally, without protection. I believed I had found the person I wanted to share my life with. One evening, we were sitting in his room, he was playing some old blues on the guitar, and I was drawing on his back with my finger. "Did you ever think you'd fall so deeply in love?" I asked. He was silent. "With you, yes. You're so real. You're not pretending. That's rare." Then my heart melted. I wanted to remember that moment forever. The way he looked at me. The way his fingers touched the strings. The way I thought, this is my home. But real life is not a scene from a romantic movie. And the truth sometimes hurts so much that you want to erase the memory. It all started with one detail. One evening, Aaron said he was going to dinner with the boys. They had their own group. Justin, Marco, and Trevor. I knew them. We all made plans together sometimes, but this time, I wasn't invited. I didn't pay any attention to it. But one day, on my way home, I decided to walk past the bar where they usually hung out. I saw Aaron's car, decided to go in and say hello. It was an impulsive decision. No bad intentions. I just missed him. I went in. Noise, laughter, the smell of beer and fried potatoes. Their group was sitting in the far corner. I didn't want to go right away. At first I stopped by the bar, and then I heard, "She's so cute, you know? But man, sometimes she's so naive, like a puppy running around with its eyes open. Sometimes I just can't help but laugh." Aaron's voice. My heart stopped. "What do you mean?" Trevor asked, giggling. "Well, she really thinks we're soul mates or something. She even wrote a list of places she wanted to go with me in the future. A list, like in a TV show for girls." Ha ha ha. I took a picture of it and sent it to you in the chat. The guys laughed. I felt the floor disappear under my feet. "So, you're only with her for the sex?" "Justin, well, the sex is great, but she's so convenient. Always there, always listening. She's just like a house psychologist, for free." I left the bar without saying a word. The air felt thin. I felt sick. There was only one sound in my head, the echo of his laughter. It was the night I lost myself. I don't remember how I got home that night. My body was moving on autopilot, but my mind was stuck in that moment at the bar. In the words that cut into my soul like shards of glass. In that laughter that sounded like a sentence to me. I stood in the middle of my room, looking at the dream list that hung on the refrigerator. A small piece of paper with the names of places I dreamed of visiting with Aaron. Paris, Kyoto, New York. I colored it with colored markers, added hearts, like a girl who doesn't know that a heart can be crushed like an empty Coke can. I took the list down and stared at it for a long time, and then I tore it into tiny pieces. But no relief came. The phone rang. A message from Aaron. "If you're awake, call me. I want to hear your voice." It was like salt in the wound. I knew I wouldn't be able to sleep until I told him. Until I looked into his eyes and asked one question. Why? I dialed his number. He answered almost immediately. "Kate." His voice was warm, as always. I was just thinking about you. I need to see you. Now. He paused. You sound serious. Is something wrong? Come over. Half an hour later, he was at my door, his favorite ice cream in his hands. He looked like someone who truly believed he could fix things, that nothing bad had happened, that he was still in control. I opened the door. I looked at him as if I were seeing him for the first time, and at the same time, for the last time. Come in, I said quietly. He came in, set the ice cream on the table, wiped his hands on his jeans. Kate, you're scaring me. What happened? I sat down opposite him. I looked him in the eye. I was passing Jacob's bar today. I saw your car, and I decided to come in. Just say hello. He froze. Were you at the bar? Yes. And I heard everything. His eyes widened. He took a step back. Look, Kate, I didn't mean to... it was just a conversation, nothing serious. We're guys, sometimes we... You laughed at me, Aaron, humiliated me, showed my list to my friends. You made a fool of me. He sat down. He put his head in his hands. I'm an idiot, I know. It was stupid. It's just... They're always joking. I didn't want to seem weak. They don't understand what kind of relationship we have. Real? I barely held back my tears. What's real about them? You said I was convenient for you, that I was your psychologist for free. Why are you with me, Aaron? He was silent. That silence was louder than any answer. I loved you, I whispered. I believed in you. I thought you were the one who would never betray me. Because you know how I've been betrayed before. I told you everything. Everything. He reached out. Kate, don't do this. I'll make it right. I swear. It was a mistake. I backed away. You didn't make a mistake. You made a choice, and I'm going to make mine now too. We're done. His eyes turned red. He was about to say something, but I had already opened the door. Go. He stood there for a few more seconds, then he left. And I closed the door. Slowly. Forever. The first few hours after that were like a black hole. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, trying not to feel it. But the pain still crept through me, like fire through dry grass. I remembered everything, every conversation, every kiss, how he would hold me when I cried because of a fight with my parents, how we would laugh while watching stupid shows, how I believed we were building something real. And it turned out that I was the only one building it. A few days later, I took all his things. I put them in a box. His t-shirt, which I love to wear at home, his toothbrush, the photo from the trip to the lake. I didn't burn them. I didn't scream. I just put the box outside the door and wrote a short message. Take this away. Don't write anymore. He didn't answer. And he didn't come. The box sat there for 2 days. And only then did it disappear. I was sick with memories. From how much I had allowed myself to believe. But at the same time, something new was beginning inside me. Something that I couldn't describe yet. A barely noticeable tremor. Like dawn after a sleepless night. The first weeks after the breakup were like a vast, silent swamp. Days mixed with nights. I lost my appetite, my weight, my meaning. Every object in my apartment reminded me of Aaron. His cup on the shelf, his perfume still weathering from my pillow. There were traces of him in the music I listened to. Even in the silence, he was there. My best friend Jules came over every night. She brought me soup, hugged me, sat silently next to me as I cried, curled up in a blanket. I knew he wasn't the one for you, she whispered one night, but you had to go through this. To understand that you were worthy of more. I nodded, but I didn't believe it. On social media, I saw Aaron posting photos with his friends, smiling, carefree, as if nothing had happened, as if I was just a phase he was quickly getting over. It was killing me. I deactivated my accounts. One morning, I woke up and realized I was either going to hit rock bottom or I was going to start turning myself around, gradually, painfully. But honestly, the first thing I did was clean my apartment, throw out everything that had to do with him, buy new sheets, make an appointment with a psychologist. It was the strangest experience, talking to a stranger about how someone turned you inside out. My therapist, Dr. Rains, was an older woman with a soft voice. She didn't judge. She just listened and occasionally asked questions that made me look deeper. What if you met a girl who had gone through the same thing you are now? What would you tell her? That she deserves love and respect. So why do you think you don't deserve it yourself? I cried. But for the first time, It wasn't from pain, it was from awareness. I didn't need Aaron's forgiveness. I needed forgiveness from myself, for allowing myself less than I deserved. I started going to yoga, drawing. I made a new habit. Every night I would write down 3 things I was grateful for. At first, it was small things. Warm tea, hugs from Jules, sun through the window. But over time, the list grew. I began to see the world again. One day, I found an old dress in my closet that I had bought before I met Aaron. I had never worn it with him. He thought it was too bright. I put it on. And I looked at myself in the mirror, and I saw a woman. Strong, tired, but real. One day, I decided to go back to the bar. That same Jacob's bar. Not to find him, but to reclaim the space that had once belonged to my pain. I was sitting by the window, drinking lemonade and reading a book. People were laughing around me. Some were playing pool, some were joking. It was no longer a place of betrayal. It was just a place. I was breathing. I was living. Suddenly, a guy came up to me. Tall, with disheveled hair and kind eyes. "Sorry, I don't want to bother you, but you look very confident. And I thought that maybe I should learn this from you." I smiled. "That's interesting, because I'm just learning this myself." We got to talking. His name was Nick. He was a graphic designer who had just moved to the city. There was no flirting. There were no promises. Just a conversation between 2 people looking for light. When I got home, there were no butterflies. There were no fireworks. But there was silence. Calm, soft, and for the first time in a long time, hope. I was still healing. And I probably would be for a long time. But I wasn't afraid anymore. I knew who I was. And that I would never let myself be put down again. I was choosing myself. As I began to heal, I realized that I needed to not just get through this, but learn to protect myself. Build boundaries. Not high walls that I would hide behind for the rest of my life, but healthy boundaries that could not be crossed without respect. I no longer wanted to be convenient for others. I wanted to be honest with myself. Jules was the first to notice. "You've changed," she said one day as we sat in a coffee shop. Not in the sense of happy or sad, no. You've become stronger, silent but deeper. I smiled. For the first time, I didn't have to deny or explain myself. My work, my style of dress, even my voice, everything began to change. I no longer laughed at jokes that offended me. I stopped compromising with people who disregarded my feelings. And most importantly, I started saying no without explanation. During that time, I met Nick again. He texted me a week after that night at the bar. We went for a walk in the park. It was easy, no tension, no expectations, just 2 people learning to be themselves. "You sound like someone who's been through something big," he said. "I've been through it, and in the process, I've rediscovered myself." We didn't meet officially, and that was a good thing. I didn't want to jump into a new relationship just because the previous ones left scars. I wanted to make sure I wasn't looking for someone to save me, because this time, I was saving myself. One day, in a cafe, I heard a familiar voice behind me. Aaron. He didn't notice me at first. He was laughing with someone like he had in the bar. But this time, I didn't freeze. I just breathed, calmly. I was on the other side of the pain. I walked out without looking back. That same evening, he wrote, "You look happy. I'm glad you're okay. If you ever want to talk, I'm here." I didn't answer, because I didn't need anything more from him. He was part of my past. I was walking into the future. During my session with the psychologist, I said, I was afraid that I would never be the person I was before him. But you know what? I wasn't. I became better. Dr. Rains smiled. Because true healing is not about returning to the old. It's about building a new one. And you did. I was still learning. Sometimes the sadness still came. But I already knew that he was not my enemy, but part of history. A sign that I had lived, loved, and grown. And I would never again be the one who would let me laugh at my dreams. Spring came suddenly. The city streets were covered in flowers, the trees were bursting with green, and the air smelled of new beginnings. I stood on the balcony, holding a cup of coffee, and for the first time in months, I felt I was not just alive. I was new. My life no longer revolved around someone else, not around wanting to be chosen, not around the fear of being abandoned. I didn't wait for a call, I didn't analyze messages, I didn't make excuses or scenarios. I just was. And that was enough. Jules and I took a weekend trip to the ocean. It had been our dream since college. We laughed until we cried, drank cheap wine, sunbathed in the wind, as if washing away the shadows of the past. "You're not afraid anymore," she said, as we sat on the beach by the fire in the evening. "I don't let fear control me anymore," I replied. "I've seen what the edge looks like." And survived. I made new friends, took photography courses, and started sharing my work online. People wrote to me that my photos were about feelings, about loss, about recovery, about strength. And I realized that my story could be about more than just pain, but also hope. Sometimes I would get messages from girls. "I was betrayed too. Your post made me feel less alone." Or, "You helped me believe that I could trust myself again." This was my new meaning. Not just to live, but to be a support for those who were still walking through the darkness. Nick became a part of my life gradually. We met not because I was afraid of being alone, but because he respected my boundaries. Because with him, I didn't have to pretend. I could be disheveled, silent, vulnerable, and still remain wanted. Not needed, but wanted. That's the difference I learned to distinguish. "How did you learn to stand up for yourself like that?" he asked one evening as we sat in the kitchen and cut fruit. I thought, and I answered, "Because of pain and love, but not someone else's. My own." That evening, I looked at myself in the mirror for a long time, and I saw not a girl who was not loved enough, but a woman who chose herself, who was not broken, who learns, makes mistakes, but does not give up. I wrote a letter, but not to Aaron. A letter to myself, the one who went through all this. "You cried at night and hid in the bathroom from the light. You kept yourself afloat when everything inside screamed to give up. You were alone, and that's what you grew up in. You didn't become cold, you became honest. Thank you for not giving up." I printed it out and put it in a frame. I put it on my desk, not as a monument to pain, but as a symbol of rebirth. Because I am not just a girl who was betrayed. I am a woman who survived, chose herself, and started again. And that is the best story of all.